When you hear the word robot, what pops into your head? Probably something from a sci-fi movie, right? A walking, talking machine. But what if I told you the real definition is both simpler and way more interesting? So, what actually makes something a robot? Let's break it down.
A lot of our ideas about robots, they come from science fiction. I mean, who hasn't heard of Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics? This one on screen is the big one, the first law. And while it's a super cool concept for a fictional future, to really get a grip on the robots of today, we've got to go back in time a bit.
And get this, the word robot didn't even come from a science lab. It came from a play. Seriously, it's from the Czech word robota, which means forced labor. It was first used back in a 1920s play all about artificial workers. So right from the very beginning, the whole idea was about machines built to work for us.
Okay, so we've got the sci-fi and we've got the history. But that all leads to the big question, right? What defines a robot in our world right now? So, let's talk about where you can actually find these things. And here's the thing, you might be surprised to learn that robots are pretty much everywhere already. I'm not just talking about high-tech labs. They're in our factories, in our homes, and yeah, even flying over our heads. Take factories, for example. You've got these incredible robotic arms, just like this one. They do things like high-precision welding on cars or assembling tiny electronics way faster and more accurately than any human could. They're perfect for the really dangerous or super repetitive jobs, which actually makes things safer and more efficient for everybody. And then there's this guy. I bet some of you even have one of these at home. These little autonomous vacuum cleaners, or even robot lawnmowers, are perfect examples of robots in our daily lives. They just zip around our homes, handling chores, and honestly, giving us a little bit of our time back.
And if you look up, you'll see drones. I mean, what is a drone if not a flying robot, right? They're used for literally everything now, from taking those amazing aerial shots you see online, to inspecting bridges, and yeah, even delivering packages right to your door. These unmanned aerial vehicles are a huge deal in robotics today.
Okay, so hold on. We've got a factory arm, a vacuum cleaner, and a flying drone. They seem totally different. So what on earth do they all have in common? Well, it turns out there's a kind of secret recipe, a set of 3 simple rules that every single real robot has to follow.
And here it is. This is the ultimate checklist. For any machine to be called a robot, it has to do 3 things. It needs to sense its surroundings, it has to move and interact, and it has to be programmable. You need all 3, no exceptions. Let's break those down. First up, sense. It's kind of like our own senses, right? We use our eyes and ears to figure out what's going on. Well, robots use sensors. They might have light sensors to see, or pressure sensors to feel, or temperature sensors. All that data they collect is how a robot gets a picture of the world around it. Okay, second rule, move. A robot can't just sit there and think. It has to actually do something in the real world. That's where all the physical parts come in, the motors, the wheels, the gears, the grippers. All that stuff allows it to turn, or lift, or drive. This is the action part of the whole deal. And number 3, the big one, programmable. This is basically the robot's brain. There's always a controller inside that takes all that information from the sensors, looks at its programming, and then decides what to do next. It's what tells the motors to spin or the arm to lift. This is what separates a robot's actions from just being random.
All right, so now that we have our 3 rules, sense, move, and programmable, we can start to clear up some common mix-ups. Because, not everything we call a bot is actually a robot.
This is a really important one. On one side, you've got physical robots. They have an actual mechanical body. They exist in the real world. On the other side, you've got software bots. Think of a chatbot on a website. That's just code. It only interacts with digital stuff, not physical objects. So based on our rules, a chatbot? Not a real robot.
Here's another big misconception. People often lump robotics and artificial intelligence, or AI, together, but they are totally different fields.
Sure, you can have a robot that uses AI, but tons of robots don't. That factory arm we saw? It's probably just following a simple, repetitive program over and over again. No learning, no thinking, no AI involved at all.
Okay, one last piece to this puzzle. Let's talk about who's in control. When we look at physical robots, we can basically split them into two camps based on how much help they need from us humans.
So over here on the left, you've got an independent robot. We also call them autonomous. A perfect example is the Mars rover. It's out there making its own decisions, navigating terrain all by itself, based on its sensors and programming. Then on the right, you have a dependent robot, like that factory welder. It's still a robot, but it's working directly with and being controlled by a human. So one is an explorer, and the other is an assistant. All right, let's do a quick recap. First, we learned the whole idea of a robot actually started in a play, not a lab. Wild. Second, the 3 golden rules. A real robot must sense, move, and be programmable. We also cleared up that physical robots are not the same as software bots. And finally, we saw that robots can be either totally independent or dependent on humans. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? We're seeing more and more of those independent, autonomous robots out there, ones that don't need us looking over their shoulder. So as that trend continues, it makes you wonder, how is our world going to change?